threw Barletta overboard.
Candidate from Josh Shapiro to be the Democratic nominee for the governorship of Pennsylvania. We're waiting for Doug to speak. We'll hear what Mastriano has to say shortly. We'll hear what he's saying. We're about to project. Let's talk a little bit about this coming on to Shapiro Mastriano.
Exactly what he wanted. How do we know that? He ran a television commercial, played it extensively on Fox, where he things that conservatives would have appreciated Mastriano. He's against abortion, wants to end mail-in balloting. In a very clear way, delivered a message: independents and Democrats that this is not a problem. The happiest person in Pennsylvania tonight is Shapiro.
What do you think?
First, I think that's right. I cannot find a Republican. I would try to talk to a number of them who is excited about the fact that Mastriano is projected to win this race, because for a lot of these reasons that Chris Wallace and David Axelrod were discussing, which is to say that this was the public have a right to know what they're saying. I think, your point. So there is a different level of the kind of politics that is seen. I can't accept in that direction, but they're
I think also speaks to the weeks of party.
He's projected to good.
While we have projected this is the part of the party that's electing him as the group. One that was just talking about, but it was too little too late. And in many ways, that actually echoed the primary in 2016 when Donald Trump took candidate after candidate and consolidated.
What do you think his message needs to be tonight in his remarks?
Well, we're used to candidates who try and move toward the center once they win a nomination. I don't think that's about to happen. Let's watch.
Yeah, he's speaking shortly. What he has to say, he's a projected Republican winner. He's obviously a very, very happy guy. We did get a statement about him, Mastriano, from Josh Shapiro, the Democratic candidate, the Attorney General of Pennsylvania. He said that Pennsylvania needs a governor who can meet this moment, but just nominated a dangerous extremist who wants to take away our freedoms. The contrast to this election could not be clearer. Dr. Mastriano wants to ban abortion without acceptance, restrict the right to vote, and spread conspiracy theories, and destroy the union way of life for hardworking Pennsylvanians. That is a very strong statement from Josh Shapiro attacking Dr. Mastriano.
I want to talk to the team here about David. What do you say Mastriano Shapiro looks like you?
Listen, I again, for the most conservative guy that could win the state of Pennsylvania, and it's tough. Josh Shapiro is an incredibly competent candidate, and I think Mastriano. Listen, this is Pennsylvania is historically kind of purple state, right? And so I don't think it may be, may not make a lot of Republicans happy here. I'm just being truthful. The toughest, we're hearing this. The governor. It's the point. The Secretary of State. The governor has a role. What's going to happen in 2024? I want the Republican nominee to win Pennsylvania in this race. I think it's pushing a big rock up a hill for Doug Mastriano with the views he's espoused, what he's saying now, where he was in January 6th, just a little bit out of step where Republican voters traditionally been. If you look at folks like Pat Toomey and Tom Ridge and Art Spector, it's a long history going back many, many years. Thornburg, a very moderate Republican in the state.
Well, but why don't you have Toomey now? You don't have Toomey now because Toomey voted to convict Trump for his role. And he knew that the base of his party was going to punish him for doing the right thing.
It also made term limits commitment.
Well, sure, that's fine. But I also think the fact that he was one of the few Republicans that stood up, did the right thing, so the president can't be sicking mob on the Capitol. And
Endorsing of Mastriano. So that's interesting. And the RGA is even saying, we're going to play in winnable races, but they didn't quite endorse it. And of course, Donald Trump didn't even win Pennsylvania. So running almost more extreme than Trump is not a winning recipe for general election.
Listen, Doug Mastriano may surprise everybody and come back to the middle here, right? I hope he does. Listen, you're going to have to come back to the middle. Right? There's a long history of pride. People run to the left, they run to the right, and then they kind of tap back towards the middle.
well, we'll see.
January 6th.
That's what it needs to be. If he wants to be competitive against Josh Shapiro, he needs to pack back to the middle.
I will say, no matter whether the tax left, right, otherwise, let's listen to Doug Mastriano.
I'm looking across the past couple of years here, and I'm looking at the champions out here that fought with us. And you remember when the schools shut down and they matched up your kids? The Project Kids athletic opportunities, scholarships, of their education, of the prom, of life. No scientific reason to do that. Businesses, essential, not essential, not essential. Not my Pennsylvania. Absolutely not. There's a time, Levine, follow the science. Yeah. Federal policies is setting sick in homes, killing thousands with it. And they're doubling, of course, the permitted to Admiral, Woman of the Year. Anyway. But I'd like to call people who stand on the Constitution far right and extreme. I repeat that. That is crap. That is absolutely not true. Actually, their party, which media stands for, they've gone. There's one sentence to say, stick back in homes. Their policies, Democrat policies, and kill so many. That's extreme. That's extreme for kids in Alaska. That's extreme for the health workers. They think they can spend $20 million. But we talk consent. We saw in our own race here, one guy had like $16 million, right? It's like single digits. I mean, you cannot buy elections anymore. Maybe that was true before COVID, but our eyes are wide open. I know as you travel the state here, we have a massive movement of people from the width and length of Pennsylvania who don't always agree with us on all issues. In fact, many of them used to be Democrats and recently switched so they could vote for us here, and it's fantastic. John Adams said, our second president, facts are stubborn things, right? And as you are out collecting, you've got to keep an eye on that phone there, sorry. As you're out there collecting a record number for a Republican gubernatorial candidate, 29,000 signatures get me on the ballot. You converted it was beautiful. Thank you for doing that. That's when the swamps are like, uh-oh, maybe we should not.
They're not just opponents, they are evil, which is an important thing that is going to be part of the debate and discussion as voters decide who they want to lead the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania in November. We are right now waiting to learn the winner of the marquee Republican Senate race in Pennsylvania and to find out how North Carolina Congressman Madison Cawthorn fares tonight. He is trailing with most of the votes in. Not all of them, but most of them. We got a lot more ahead, a lot more nail biting after the break.
Our mission here at CNN and journalists, the news comes first. That's when your heart beats a little bit faster. More breaking news that we are following right now. You really work as hard as you can, getting the facts. We're learning more about our blind spot. It is critically important. To our viewers in the United States and around the world, welcome to the Situation Room. We have breaking news.
I'm Julia Chatterley. I'll speak to newsmakers, risk takers, and the ultimate game changers.
First Move with Julia Chatterley, weeknights on CNN.
Everywhere that there are people, they can be exploited. And it is the most profitable form of business today. And in my opinion, the most evil form. My name is Jeannie Mai Jenkins. I'm a television personality and the executive producer of Surviving Sex Trafficking, and I'm talking to you from Atlanta. Surviving Sex Trafficking is a documentary that follows the lives of 5 survivors who are able to tell us about their traumatizing situation with sex trafficking. The dangerous thing is trafficking doesn't happen instantaneously. It's a process. It's a process of building a relationship with somebody, building trust. And trafficking preys on people's dreams. Every single one of us have dreams. And trafficking finds a way to learn what your dreams are, and that trafficker preys on what your dream is and then gives you an exchange or some type of promise through either a relationship or love or affection or money in order for you to make your dreams come true. And that's why our film is intended to educate you, to inspire you through the lives of these survivors, but more than anything, tell you the stories of these 5 women who were trafficked in very different ways and how it could happen to anybody you know as well.
I'm Mindy Kincaid in Atlanta, and this is CNN.
It is election night in America, and we are bringing you now 2 key race alerts. Let's go now to the Republican Senate primary in Pennsylvania. Former hedge fund manager Dave McCormick still in the lead, much more narrow now, 31.8%. He is about 7,000 votes ahead of Mehmet Oz, the television doctor endorsed by Donald Trump, who's at 30.9%, a real squeaker there. Kathy Barnett, who is an insurgent and has been surging recently, is still in 3rd place with 23.5% of the vote. Still, 48% of the vote remains to be counted, so it's anybody's race as of now. But right now, Dave McCormick remains in the lead. Let's go to the North Carolina House race, where incumbent Congressman Madison Cawthorn remains in second place with 31.7% of the vote. In first place, State Senator Chuck Edwards with 33.5% of the vote. He's up by 1,500 votes, more than 1,500 votes. Let's go to Diane Gallagher right now, who is at Cawthorn headquarters in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Diane, what's happening inside the Cawthorn camp right now? Most of the votes are counted, but there's still 5 or 6% of the vote out there. What is the campaign saying?
Yeah, so things are shutting down here at this point, Jake. Madison Cawthorn went home just a few moments ago after addressing supporters and telling them that he plans to fight on for his community. Now, what that means for him is still to be determined. As you said, still some votes out there at this point, but it has been an uphill battle for him all night. This is what he said to supporters just a few moments ago.
You know what? The thing that I love about President Trump is that when you get your back pushed up against the wall, I've found that most people in politics, if it's not politically expedient to them, they'll turn your back on you in a heartbeat. But no matter what you are facing, when Donald Trump has your back, he has your back to the end.
Can I report the concession or not? Yeah, so again, Madison Cawthorn had this lead that he anticipated coming into this, but of course we know about all of those scandals that have plagued him throughout his very short tenure during this freshman year in Congress. He also was up against plenty of cash and pressure from Republicans in his state, including U.S. Senator Thom Tillis. And I am being told now by the spokesperson for the campaign that Madison Cawthorn has called Chuck Edwards and conceded the race to him, Jake. So Madison Cawthorn will be a one-term congressman, it appears. He has called State Senator Chuck Edwards and conceded that race. Edwards, of course, had the support of most of the major politicians and Republicans here in the state of North Carolina, including U.S. Senator Thom Tillis, who put quite a bit of effort into actively campaigning for him. Edwards told me when I spoke with him about this race that he considers himself just as conservative, just as Trump aligned, just less embarrassing. He said that he plans to be more present within the district than he said Cawthorn was, and that he planned to just get to work and not chase the limelight. Those were his accusations against Cawthorn, the reasons why he said that he felt like he should stay in the race. One more thing here, Jake. I don't think, and according to Chuck Edwards, he would have even been in this race to start with if Madison Cawthorn had not switched districts when the redistricting process went through North Carolina and went to a different district closer to Charlotte. There were a lot of people here who said they felt abandoned by that because when the court struck down that map and they were redrawn, he came back to his old district that had a much larger field of Republicans who thought they were vying for an open seat. Chuck Edwards told me he didn't think he was going to ever go up against an incumbent because he was a good Republican. But he said at that point, too much had happened and he wanted to stay in the race because of that sort of abandonment that he took it for his home in his district. But Madison Cawthorn, Jake, conceding that race tonight to State Senator Chuck Edwards, who will likely be the Republican nominee for the 11th District of North Carolina.
All right, Diane Gallagher, a fascinating turn of events in the 11th Congressional District in North Carolina. Congressman Madison Cawthorn defeated in the Republican primary and conceding defeat to the state senator, Mr. Edwards, who defeated him. Let's go to Dana and Abby. Dana and Abby, I think it's fair to say that this victory would not have happened for State Senator Edwards if Senator Thom Tillis, who is an incumbent Republican senator, had not pushed for Edwards to run, supported Edwards to run, publicly come out against the embarrassments, the scandals, too many to list really, in the evening we have together, that the Madison Cawthorn has brought in just a few years, just 2 years in Congress. And I saw a Republican commentator, conservative commentator, saying on social media earlier that that is what the Republican Party needs, that kind of leadership that Senator Tillis demonstrated, which is This is somebody who is not good for the Republican Party, not good for the citizens of the 11th Congressional District, in Senator Tillis's view. I'm going to do something to change it.
Yeah, but you know, Jake and Abby, that the kind of statement that Senator Tillis made about Madison Cawthorn would have been complete unanimity among every Republican, loud and clear, just a few years ago, to the point where Madison Cawthorn would probably have been completely run out of town, would not have felt that he even could stay on the ballot. He had the endorsement, tepid as it was, he had the endorsement of Donald Trump. This is a man who has a cauldron of crazy, of things that he has done, where he has one after another incident where it has to do with a gun at the airport, orgies, drugs. I mean, you name it, he has done it, to the point where I believe it was Richard Burr, the retiring senator, said that he is so embarrassing that it's just a day that ends with Y. Right. He's embarrassing the Republicans of North Carolina and the United States Congress. And this is a Republican.
Yeah, I mean, both of the, really, Madison Cawthorn had very few friends. He made it very easy for Republicans to kind of unite against him. And you know that that there was unity against him because in the run-up to this race, pretty much everything that you can think of that was negative about Cawthorn came out. There were photos of him in women's lingerie. There were videos of him doing, seemingly sexually explicit things. He had to explain away all of those things, but it was just evidence of the force that was being put toward getting him out of this race. He was outspent significantly, and Thom Tillis put his money where his mouth was. He spent from his super PAC. There's a reason, though, that this is not going to happen when it comes to other issues among Republicans. People like Thom Tillis, they could get Madison Cawthorn out. He's a 20-something-year-old new member of Congress who made a lot of mistakes. As it goes, that's one of the easier things to kind of put your foot down on. I don't think you're going to see this kind of effort being made on other issues. Republicans are not necessarily going to go up against, Marjorie Taylor Greene or others who kind of are in the same vein. They are all show in a lot of ways, all about the media, all about the tweets and the retweets, but they're not going to go up against those individuals because I think it's a very different dynamic. Madison Cawthorn just made it really easy for them.
Yeah, one of the things I think it's worth pointing out, Anderson, is that what appeared to be the final straw for Republicans in the Senate and in North Carolina and in the House when it came to Congressman Madison Cawthorn was not his election lies or his support of the insurrection or his various run-ins with the law, the allegations of sexual misconduct in college, and on and on. It appeared to be when he went on a podcast and said that Republicans in Washington, D.C. Did drugs and had orgies. That is what appears to have been his biggest mistake, was impugning them, not any of the other things he did that actually physically harmed other people.
Right, that's absolutely right. And then he tried to kind of walk that back somewhat, or at least we're told he did with McCarthy. What do you think happens to Madison Cawthorn now?
I doubt he goes away. I'm sure he'll become a fixture in some of the far right-wing media. But one thing I want to note, perhaps the most honorable thing Madison Cawthorn did in office was tonight to call and concede. I was actually surprised to hear that he so quickly went ahead and actually made that concession because he was such a booster of the big lie and the election was stolen. But one thing I think that is important to note in his case, he had obviously his plethora of scandals. He was on the bad side of Republican leadership. But all politics is local. I worked in North Carolina's 11th district for years. His district office was closed most of the time. He wasn't doing casework. He wasn't doing constituent services. And this is a district that's heavily veterans, retired folks, senior citizens who need help with basic things like navigating the bureaucracy of Medicare or veterans benefits. So he wasn't doing the real work of being a congressman. And then on top of that was an embarrassment. So I think it's a good day for the people of North Carolina's 11th district.
Do you think he bought in? Once he sort of got, not that the lights of Washington are particularly bright, but that it kind of went to his head. I mean, if you forget about your district, you forget about the people who got you there.
Oh, exactly. And he was co-opted quickly by the Matt Gaetzes and the Marjorie Taylor Greens, and I think saw it as more of a way to become a right-wing celebrity rather than to actually serve his constituents.
I would also add that Madison Cawthorn's a kid, right? Let's not forget he's a very, very young guy, and you know, a lot of people make mistakes when they're young that they regret later in life. So I'm sure you haven't seen the last of Madison Cawthorn. He'll be back in some other form. And so don't write him off yet.
Hopefully we'll see less of Madison Cawthorn than we have.
No, well, you may see more because he is now a right-wing celebrity. And by the way, with everything you just said about him, he still came in number 2. He still came in number 2. Who voted for this? Come on.
But that's my point. He's a popular guy. Don't write him off yet.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that I was going to be very, very concerned if you could do the kinds of stuff he did, tell the kinds of lies he told, and be rewarded for it. I think it's good that he gets a chance to maybe go home and get himself back together. You've not heard the last of him, but he needs to take a break. He needs to get some help, and they actually need to have some good government down there in North Carolina.
President Trump asked voters to give him a second chance.
Well,
yeah. I listen again. That's my point. I think he's a young guy, right? He's going to be around. North Carolina is a big state, and don't count him out running again in something else in the state of North Carolina.
But listen, it is a notable loss for the former president. It was a last-minute endorsement, but North Carolina's 11th district, R+9 at least, if not more Republican than that. President Trump won it. So that didn't put him over the edge shows that perhaps his support is waning there as well.
Well, what I will say is that, Trump, there are times he can be loyal, and there are times he's not. There are people who have really thrown themselves, like think about Mike Pence, people who have thrown themselves on hand grenades for the guy, who he completely threw under the bus, and yet he picks this young man who clearly needs help to be loyal to. So I think sometimes, I don't understand the rationale.
Lou Barletta in Pennsylvania, who was an early supporter of Donald Trump's and then didn't get his endorsement.
Yeah, so I don't understand the rationale.
The spotlight is on the Republican Senate race in Pennsylvania. It is still up in the air with more than half of the votes in. Will we be able to make a projection anytime soon? We'll find out ahead.
コーヒーの持つ力って人と人をつなぐ力だと思ってて、使うお湯の総湯量を事前にまず出すんですよね。でそれを 40% と 60% に分けるんですよ。で最初の 40% で味の中心を作り上げたら、あとはそれをどこまで薄めますか、仮説とかを立てたりして、それで飲むとその仮説が正しかったかどうかで次に活かせるから、うちの会社のビジョンっていうのは日本のコーヒーといえばフィロコフィアってなることなんですよ。からそれを達成するには世界に向けた通販が必要だったんですよね。
Trends, tech, news, Marketplace Asia.
How the pandemic continues to affect consumer habits and corporate spending across Asia, in China and beyond.
Marketplace Asia, Saturday on CNN.
Welcome to The Lead. We begin with breaking news. The United States has plunged into a recession. We're seeing infections at an all-time high. What's your reaction to that? Here are the facts.
The Lead with Jake Tapper. When you follow a story, you may be asked to take risks. And sometimes go down a path that's not marked.
Where Iraqi troops would pre-position and these Americans would advise them.
These protests are a test for Hamas.
Any understanding between Israel and Gaza could quickly fall apart again.
The protesters are just outside a military base. They're throwing rocks and security forces firing tear gas.
When you dare to take risks, you witness passion and persistence.
And they just want to get their past be processed so they can get out of this facility.
And that's where change happens.
The one thing they have in common is a determination to keep going.
I'm Nick Watt in Los Angeles, and this is CNN.
When you travel the world, make sure the world travels with you. Check in, log on, and get connected with all of the latest developments at your fingertips. CNN Partner Hotels. Connected to your world.
We try to be global and we try to be smart. And we try very hard to get both of those every week. But I want to hear our authentic voices of people who are passionate or intelligent about a subject, who will make you smarter, move you emotionally, who will kind of challenge your mind or move your heart. And that's the consistency that we try to get at.
Fareed Zakaria GPS, Sundays on CNN.
I'm Patrick Ottman in Havana, Cuba, and this is CNN.
It's election night in America. Let's take a look at another key race alert. Look at this nail-biter in the Senate Republican primary in Pennsylvania. Former hedge fund manager Dave McCormick still in the lead with 32% of the vote. He is 7,388 votes ahead of Mehmet Oz, the TV doctor endorsed by Donald Trump, who's at 31.1%. Kathy Barnett, who was surging late in the race, is at 23.7%. That's with 63% of the estimated vote in. Still a lot of votes to be counted. Let's go to John King at the Magic Wall. And John, what is going on here? Because first of all, obviously, the Barnett surge is, at least as of now, has not brought her to the competitive race we thought she was at. Where are the votes coming in from?
It could be the case, Jake, as we continue to count. Maybe she peaked too soon, because we do know both McCormick and Oz turned on her late in the campaign when they realized she was a threat. But where are we? We're at 63% estimated of the vote counted. So we still have a ways to go, a little more than a third of the vote to count. But you see all this deep red. That is Dave McCormick leading in a lot of counties that Donald Trump carried in both 2016 and 2020. And that's the surprise of the race so far. You see the lead, 7,416 votes. It's gone from about 6,000 up to about 8,000, 8,500 in the last hour or so as more and more votes come in. I just want to walk through some of it as you show. Number one, what's missing, right? What votes are still not been counted? So we're at about 64% statewide. Forgive me for coming across here. I just want to move this back. Let's move it back to about 72%, 73%. So these counties have reported 73% or less of the vote, meaning there's more votes to be counted. If you look at them, Jake, a lot of them are over here. Right? This is the more populous part of the state, over in the eastern part of the state, especially down here in the suburbs just around Philadelphia. So a lot of the votes to be counted still out here. You do see some counties out here. Besides Erie County, most of the counties you're seeing out here in the west have a very small population, so not a ton of votes out there. Let me bring this back to the full map so we can just come through and count as we go. What else do you see in this map? The reason McCormick is so competitive right now is because he's doing well everywhere. Now, you see, this is Oz's colors pink, this is Barnett's color, the yellow, and the deeper red is Dave McCormick. What do I mean by he's doing well everywhere? Well, let's take a look at Trump counties, the counties Trump won in 2020. Right? You see, the gray ones are anything dark gray that was carried by Joe Biden. You see the dark gray here, the dark gray here. But in these counties Trump carried, look at Dave McCormick. He's more than holding his own right there. That's one way to look at it. Here's another way to look at it. Let's come up through here and look at rural counties. That is Donald Trump's strength in all of these big states. Rural America was the backbone of Trump's support. Look at Dave McCormick. He's the dark red. He's doing well in a lot of these rural counties as well. This was where people thought Will the Trump endorsement, a few votes here, a few votes there, make a difference? Right now, David McCormick holding his own when you look at the rural counties. Let's take a look. Another place to come at it, the suburban counties, especially, wait till this slides away, but in western Pennsylvania, Allegheny County, the suburbs around Pittsburgh, Dave McCormick leading there. When you come here, more of a split verdict. Barnett is doing well in Montgomery County here, but again, everywhere you look, Dave McCormick holding his own in the suburbs, in the rural part of the state. That doesn't mean we're done. We still have a ways to go, but a surprisingly strong in Trump country, strong in what you'd say traditional Republican country, strong in the East, strong in the West. And you see this. Remember Butler County? We talked about Butler County a lot in 2020. Trump had a big rally here late in the campaign. This is where he thought he would come back. He lost to Joe Biden in Pennsylvania, but this is where he thought he would come back. This was a huge Trump county. You're seeing this a lot in what you would call Trump country Pennsylvania. McCormick on top, and then add this up, 30%, 23%, right? 53, 54%. That's one in Butler County. You move over here to Clarion County, same thing. Dave McCormick leading in this county. It's a smaller county. You see the population here. But again, you add up the other two candidates here. Barnett is second and Oz is third. You're seeing this in a lot of the strong Trump rural counties. McCormick leading, the other two second or third, flipping back and forth, but splitting the vote. And again, you pull it back out, we're at 66%. So 2/3 of the vote counted in Pennsylvania. It's down to 6,473 right now. That's not a huge lead, but it has held up for some time, Jake, as we continue to fill in the map.
Yeah, I have another question about the Senate race before we go to the governor's race, because Dr. Oz, he's still in a very close second place.
Yes, he is.
And with so many votes remaining to be counted, who knows what's going to happen. He obviously is the Trump-endorsed candidate. Your argument about McCormick, how he's been able to get to the successful place he's in right this minute, and that all could change, so I don't want anyone to think that it couldn't. What about Dr. Oz? Tell us where he has done well and where he should have been doing better in your view.
So let's look at it that way as you come through. So you want to look at the Trump counties, the 2020 Trump counties where Oz is winning. Well, he's doing okay. You see the pink Oz here. He's doing okay in some of the Trump counties, just not as many, right? These are the counties won by Donald Trump. So Mehmet Oz, Dr. Oz, has Donald Trump's endorsement, and you see him. He's winning some of them here, but he's not winning. Certainly a plurality to Dave McCormick right now. So it hasn't been automatic. In part, that's because of Barnett's strength, even in places where McCormick is winning. So let's try to take a few other places to look at this. This is the full place. One place where Oz is doing well is in Philadelphia. Now, again, Philadelphia is a Democratic bastion. There are not a ton of Republicans there, but it is a major population center. And if you look right now, 67% of the vote. So again, this is both a blessing and a curse for Dr. Oz. There are more votes to be counted here in a Democratic city still, but they're up to 67%. So you pull back out. This is the biggest surprise here. His headquarters, Dr. Oz's headquarters is in Bucks County tonight. He's getting 24% of the vote there. Dave McCormick getting 32% of the vote there. Again, Jake, this is where the people live, right? 30% of the population is right here. In Montgomery County, Oz is running third. In Chester County, Oz is running not too far distant, but second. So that's what you're looking at. In part, if you want to say the Trump-like or the mega vote with the endorsement and then Barnett's positions, they're splitting the vote in a lot of places. And McCormick, who in this race, I guess you would call the more mainstream Republican, right now, 31.7 to 31.2. We got some math to do still.
Yeah.
Down to 5,000 now, down to 5,100 now, excuse me.
What's interesting is, and again, the vote's not over, we're not done counting, but it does appear if this were to hold, it's possible that Barnett is the one who prevented Oz from passing Dave McCormick. Because McCormick and Oz were in a real dogfight, and then Barnett had her surge. It's possible, because she is more Trumpy in so many ways, took some of the Trump votes away from Oz. I'm just hypothesizing here.
Well, I do think, without a doubt, again, I just pick one of these counties out here in western Pennsylvania randomly. You just see it again, 36%, and you look at the two of these candidates here, 32 and 23, right? So you're 55 right there. This is, I'm not even sure what these numbers are going to show. I'm just going back to 2020 right here. This is a 70%, 68% Trump county. So if there was an automatic transfer with the endorsement to the Senate candidate, you would see Oz doing well here, and simply they are splitting, if you will, the more MAGA vote, call it what you will. I'm not sure what the right words are anymore. Dave McCormick, again, in many of these counties, he's leading right now. And again, we're up to 68% of the vote, 5,126 votes. Go back through our last couple election cycles. Pennsylvania is always close, whether we're talking about competitive primaries or competitive general elections. So more math to do, but this is a map that if you're in McCormick headquarters, you are impressed by your strength here, but especially your strength out here in the rural parts.
Yeah, although we do need to underline there's still more than 30% of the vote to count. And McCormick right now is only up by 0.5%, half a percentage point. So it really, anything could happen. Let's look at the governor's race if we can, because I think a lot of people, we're talking about how close the race for Senate is. It was not particularly close in the gubernatorial primary on the Republican side. For Mastriano, he really ran away with it.
And again, so if you're in McCormick headquarters, if you're in any of the Republican Senate headquarters, you're saying, why didn't the Trump endorsement do for Oz what it did for Mastriano? Now, Mastriano, obviously, the state senator, he has a more history in the state. Part of the criticism of Oz, part of the criticism of McCormick as well, is that they were relative newcomers or returning to Pennsylvania, if you will. But look at the scope of the win here, right? Look at the scope of the win. But in the conversation Abby and Dana were having, that David Urban was having earlier about why do people view Mastriano as such a weak, potentially weak general election candidate, well, this is Trump country. Come east. This is Lou Barletta's home base, right? Before Lou Barletta went to Congress, he was the mayor, Luzerne County. He was the mayor of Hazleton. So Lou Barletta, it's not surprising that he did well here. This was his traditional base. He's very well known from his days as mayor and his days in Congress. But look down here. Look down here. Again, a Republican candidate does not have to win the Philadelphia suburbs to win statewide in Pennsylvania. But the Republican candidate has to be competitive in the Philadelphia suburbs. He cannot get blown out like Donald Trump did with Joe Biden. So if you come in here and look, Jake, this is Bill McSwain running first, Mastriano running third in Montgomery County. You move over to Bucks County here, Mastriano winning, but narrowly. So he will say, oh, he's competitive at least here, but just narrowly. But in these other suburban counties, he's third here. He's actually second here in Chester County. And you move here to Delaware County, he is third again. So if you look at it there, if you're the Republican candidate in November, you have to be more competitive in the Philadelphia suburbs. Doesn't mean between now and then he can't make himself more competitive, but if you're a Republican looking at this map tonight, or if you're the Shapiro campaign on the Democratic side looking at this map tonight, you know, again, 30% of the state population lives right here in this southeastern corner of the state. Doug Mastriano, as of tonight, is very weak in that part of the state. That is a giant challenge, which is why a lot of Republicans think that in terms of the governor's race here, lean at D, we go on from here.
Yeah, although as we've discussed earlier, Trump's endorsement of Mastriano came very late. It was him trying to get a W. He's been really on the Oz train for a long, long time. He just recently endorsed Mastriano, sensing that he was going to win, as we saw that he did. We're seeing more results come in from Pennsylvania and the GOP Senate race that still remains undecided this hour. Just a narrow margin between McCormick and Oz right now. We're also counting down to the next round of primary results out west, including a significant test of President Biden's political clout and a rare endorsement in a primary. We're back in a moment. Stay with us.
It is actually very complicated to move money around the world. Few companies can do it at scale. Few companies can do it in the number of countries that we do it. And so these companies that come together, like MoneyGrams and like our competitors, do really provide a very unique service, and that is to instantly move money, get funds from the United States to Mexico, literally in sub-seconds. For the ability to take $350 that you worked hard to earn and get it back to your mother, so that she can pick it up in Mexico, use it for food, healthcare, housing, is actually a very unique service. If you're from many of the countries, Mexico, Philippines, India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, some of the largest receive markets in the world, it's absolutely critical to the lives of the consumers in those countries. But many people don't appreciate that. If it's not the life that you live, then it's not something that you really ever really get involved in.
Today we live in an unpredictable environment and news races around the world at breakneck speed.
Our engine continues, our impetus, our momentum.
My show brings you the latest news and top news makers. Give me the facts on voter fraud.
There has never been a moment where voter fraud has affected the outcome of an election.
And we also dive below the headlines to explore vital issues impacting our lives.
Normally this theatre would be filled with people and art and debate and energy, and so now we have to rely on the two of us.
How interesting is it to be Tyler Mitchell today? It's crucial we make sense of what's happening.
There seems to be some confusion that maybe you can clear up. Where are the US forces in Syria going?
And fully understand what's at stake.
What's happening now in the world is a great thing because people are talking about subjects they never did before.
Amanpour, tonight on CNN.
I'm Bill Weir in Greenland, and this is CNN.
On this month's Living Golf, Southeast Asia bets big on golf as international tourism bounces back. Tour the new courses springing up along Vietnam's coastline. Meet a young Thai player who has just made history.
I think the thing with Thai golfers is that we're very fortunate.
And see what else the region has to offer.
The speed at which golf is developing in this country is phenomenal.
Join me, Shane O'Donoghue, for this month's Living Golf.
Saturday on CNN in association with Gulf Saudi.
It's election night in America. We have another key race alert for you. Look at these votes in Pennsylvania in the Senate Republican primary. Former hedge fund manager Dave McCormick at 31.6%, just with a narrow lead of 3,472 votes ahead of Mehmet Oz, the TV doctor endorsed by Donald Trump, who's at 31.2%. That margin has been narrowing all night. Kathy Barnett in third place there with 24.2% of the vote. 72% of the vote in, 28% of the vote remains out. It really could be anyone's race. McCormick just barely ahead of Mehmet Oz. We're nearing the end of voting in two more states with key primary races. In Idaho, we're keeping an eye on the Republican contest for governor, where the Trump factor is once again at play. GOP incumbent Brad Little is being challenged by the state's lieutenant governor, the conservative Trump-backed candidate Janice McGeachin. This is not the first time they have clashed. McGeachin used her power as acting governor to ban COVID restrictions, while the more establishment Little was out of state last year.